to start spending more money on your women because science says it makes you happy.
Actually, that's not what the science says. There's a lot of nuance to this that you completely miss, as well as a lot of counterpoints that you completely neglect to mention in your video.
People who spent money on someone else rather than themselves, no matter the amount of money, whether it was $5 or $20, were considerably happier than those who spent the money on themselves. And this isn't just one study. Participants who recalled a time when they spent on others that had a positive impact were happiest. And another one, participants who were randomly assigned to spend money on others experienced greater happiness than those assigned to spend money on themselves.
My question to you is, out of all three of those studies, how many of them were specifically talking about men giving to women? The answer is none of them. With all that being said, gift giving is one of the 5 love languages, as well as one of the more common at that. But what a lot of people completely gloss over is that love languages are not exclusive to romantic relationships. Love languages can also be expressed through platonic relationships between friends or parents and children. But more importantly, in your own video, you acknowledge that none of these studies really say anything about how much money you spend, which goes against your initial argument that men need to start spending more money on women when all 3 of these studies conclude it doesn't matter how much you spend. You could spend a little or a lot, it's still good for your mental health. Which begs the question, why don't women also spend more money on men if it's so good for people regardless of gender or relationship status?
Always talking about men's mental health, so this is really important. What else is also beneficial for men's mental health?
How about people who don't need to get something out of it to care? Because with all due respect, that's how you're coming off. You're only talking about it because you want something out of the bargain. Yes, people do talk about men's mental health a lot, but if you're only talking about it to the extent that you want something from it, there's a problem.
According to the science, married men are actually richer and they have about 10 times more household assets saved up over their lifetime than people who are divorced or have never been.
And that's just it. Men are not the ones filing for divorce. Women are. Contrary to what a lot of women tell themselves, it's not because women don't leave good men. It's because women have become more selfish in relationships over the last couple of generations. In fact, we're starting to see a booming industry of divorce coaching. Women teaching other women how to get the most out of a divorce. Why would men want to get married when divorce has become such an integral part of dating culture for women? Especially when you consider that divorced men are 8 times more likely to self-unalive than divorced women. See what I mean by you glossing over a lot of counterpoints in your video? But even if men get married and do make more as a result, they're not spending the money themselves because women make 80% of purchasing decisions in relationships. And while it might be true that women are purchasing essentials like food and healthcare, when it comes to clothing, they purchase 70% more clothing for themselves and their daughters than for their husbands and their sons. As such, women are more likely to spend money they didn't earn on luxuries they didn't need, while their partners get by on the bare minimum. And for the record, Economics, Facts, and Fallacies by Thomas Sowell is going to be linked in the TikTok shop down below if you'd like to read it yourself. He has a whole chapter dedicated to discussing the nuances between economic discrepancies between men and women.
If you want to be successful, richer, and more healthy, you've got to start spending more money on your women.
All of this could equally apply to women, but we're not ready for that conversation now, are we? What's the point of getting married when there's no incentive for a woman to stay and be loyal? Even many of your own sources contradict what you're trying to get at. And regardless of your intentions, you're not coming off as somebody who actually cares about men and their well-being. This sounds more like you're trying to manipulate men into being a servant rather than a partner. The reality is, it doesn't sound like you actually care about men. It sounds like you only care about what you can get from a man.